following on from what Jamie said when he talked about boxes, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Don't worry about boxes, because categorizing is a normal human activity. God did it from the beginning in Genesis, didn't he? Male and female, animals, creatures of the sea, creatures of the air, plants. It's the other word that Jamie used that's worrying, prejudice. Because as Christians, we get that thrown at us a lot. And it's a word that puts us on the defensive. I'm not prejudiced. I'm happy with anything. Anything goes. But I think we need to look at this book. This book is very important. It's our only guide other than the individual work of the Holy Spirit in each of us. And it's a whole book. There's an Old Testament and a New Testament, but it's one book. And we know that the Old Testament is important as well, because in the New Testament we're told that people looked in the Old Testament to see if the things they were learning were true. It's an Old Testament, a New Testament, an Old Covenant, a New Covenant, an Old Promise, a New Promise. Promise isn't quite a strong enough word, so that's why we use covenant. A promise is what is made when two people marry, but a covenant is better, because promises are easily broken, but a covenant is a strong thing made between two people committed to each other. So we've got God's commitment to us in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So read this book. If you find it hard, ask afterwards where to begin. Now the bit I find hard is Judges, because by the time you get to Judges, the people of Israel were really messing it up. Let me read you a bit. The Lord was with the people of Judah, and they took possession of the hill country. But they failed to drive out the people living in the plains, because the people there had iron chariots. The city of Hebron was given to Caleb, as Moses had promised, and Caleb drove out the people living there, who were descendants of the 3 sons of Anak. The tribe of Benjamin, however, failed to drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. So to this day, the Jebusites live in Jerusalem among the people of Benjamin. Some hard words, but basically, the Israelites were told in Joshua what to do about the people that were living amongst them. They'd come out of Egypt. God had brought them out as a people who were his people and his family, and he saw the wickedness and the violence and the immorality of the people around, and he said, that's not my way. Don't get like that. You're going to have to get rid of that to survive. So, where was I? The years passed, and the Lord had given the people of Israel rest from all their enemies. Joshua, who was now very old, called together all the elders, leaders, judges, and officers of Israel. He said to them, I'm an old man now. You have seen everything the Lord God has done for you during my lifetime. The Lord your God has fought for you against your enemies. I have allotted to you as an inheritance all the land of the nations yet unconquered, as well as the land of those we have already conquered, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. This land will be yours, for the Lord your God will drive out all the people living there now. You will live there instead of them, just as the Lord your God promised you. So be strong. Be very careful to follow all the instructions written in the book of the law of Moses. Do not deviate from them in any way. Make sure you do not associate with the other people still remaining in the land. Do not even mention the names of their gods, much less swear by them or worship them. But be faithful to the Lord your God, as you have done until now. For the Lord has driven out great and powerful nations for you, and no one has yet been able to defeat you. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. But if you turn away from him and intermarry with the survivors of these nations remaining among you, then know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive them out from your land. Instead, they will be a snare and a trap to you, a pain in your side and a thorn in your eyes, and you will be wiped out from this good land the Lord your God has given you. So that was the Lord's plan, that they would be separate people. They would be holy people who represented the Lord their God. The trouble was that instead of the God of Israel being special, the people began to think that it was they who were special. So they thought they were superior. That could be a trap for us too. It's our God, our Jesus, who's special. But because we love him, we might think that we are special. So, quite a change by the time we come to John's Gospel. I'm sure you'll know the story of the woman at the well. So Jesus meets this woman from Samaria, one of those nations that were not doing what the Jews, the Israelites, thought they should be doing. Jesus sat down by Jacob's well, tired from the long walk. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. And because of what I've read before, you know the attitude. She said to Jesus, "But you're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, "If only you knew the gift God has for you, and who I am, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." Just amazing. You see how Jesus embodied a whole new attitude?
Yeah.
He wants to give this woman love and a new life. An adulterous woman, yes. And then later on, he meets another adulterous woman. And it's significant that it is adulterous women, I think, because although we don't tend to connect sex with the Bible, it's important. It's important because that promise, that covenant, is embodied in marriage and in the church's relationship with God. So these things matter. So here's the last bit I'm going to read. Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and Pharisees brought a woman they had caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, stone her. But let those who have never sinned throw the first stones." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to her, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and do what you want." Only he didn't say, "Go and do what you want." He said, "Go and sin no more." So it's an interesting line we have to follow, isn't it? There is wickedness, there is violence, there is a way in the world that is not God's way at all. But what's our attitude to individuals in that? Can we balance that with still knowing that there is sin in the world?
Opportunity to work in the high school for the past, I think it's about past month or so now. I think it's been about it. Obviously Ludlow High School is a Church of England high school that has no Church of England presence in it, and we've struggled to get in the door to get anybody in there to help out. We've had various different youth workers, but they seem to come and go and stuff like that. And I got invited to go down and talk to them. And I just said, "Look, this is what I want to do, this is what we're about, this is how we want to transform people." And they just said, "Okay, so what do you want to do then?" I was just like, "I'm just here to serve you." So what I basically get to do is I get to walk around at lunchtime, talk to students, to see what's going on, any sort of one-to-one counselling need, but also get to work in the humanities and the RE classes, supporting the teacher. And last Thursday, when I came in, she just said, "Oh, the subject we're going to talk about today is right up your alley." And I went, "Oh, okay, what is it then?" She said, "Oh, I'll tell you when you get there." And I was like, "Okay, no preparation time for this or anything like that." And I honestly thought, if it's deep and theological, I'm in trouble. So if it's surface and just Jesus, then I'm okay with that. You know, but if we start to go really deep, then I'm done for. And anyway, we sat in this lesson, and she just throws this quote open, and they discussed it backwards and forwards. And then she goes, "The subject of today is," and I turn and look at the board a bit like this, and she goes, "It's the miraculous." Thank you, God. So I had 2 classes of year 9s, and I said, "Oh, I just want to talk about the miraculous today." And they go, "Oh, okay." And I said, "So do you want a personal miracle, or do you want miracles I've seen for other people?" And they said, "Start with personal." So I started talking about personal miracles. And then this one lad who's messing about a bit in the back, the teacher just says, "Look, out." Do you know what I mean? You're disrupting our class. And he's going, "No, don't say anything till I get back in." And I'm like, that's not going to happen. So he gets excluded from class. And anyway, so I start chatting, I start telling about personal miracles happened for myself. Go in, and we're talking about all this, and they're asking these really fantastic questions. I mean, I just love the young minds, because they don't ask the same questions we would ask. I mean, the first one, this kid said to me, he said, "Well, are you mad then?" I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, you hear all this stuff, and you do all this stuff. Does that mean you're a bit nuts?" And I went, "Yeah, probably." You know, it's a hard one to explain. Anyway, the lad that's been excluded suddenly pokes his head round the door and says, "Can I come back in now?" And the teacher said, "Come back," and he says, "Have you spoke about anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I've shared about 8 miracles so far." And he went, "Oh, man, a lot." I said, "Don't worry, there's a load more to come. It's okay, we've only just begun." And we start talking about the miraculous, start talking about how God's just reaching in and healing people, how this happens over here and that's happened over there. And some of the stuff they come back with was just absolutely beautiful. And then the lad who's playing up, right, suddenly stands up out of his chair and just says, "How do I get what you've got?" And I was just like, okay. And then this other lad stands up over here and he says, "Well, how do I get it as well?" And I'm like, yeah. And then a girl just over here, she stands up and says, "I want it as well." And I'm just like, oh, okay. To be honest, I'm completely taken off guard. That's not what I was expecting. Do you know what I mean? I thought we'd talk about miracles, they'd call me a few names and stuff like that, and then we'd go out, maybe get to pray with a couple of them or something like that. But it just, I didn't know what to do. If I'm honest, I didn't know what to do. I was completely sort of just took off, and I think I did some half-haired prayer repentance, I think it was, or something like that, you know what I mean? But it involved Jesus a lot. But the simplicity of what we can give to people, the simplicity of who Christ is, what we've talked about this morning, is beautiful, because they're just saying, when you say to them, "Look, this is it. This is the kingdom. This is what it looks like. This is who he is. This is what he did." And they go, "But is that it?" And yet sometimes as church and church history, we've made it so complex. And then we wonder why today our youthful nations go, "I'm not really interested in that." Now these guys, right, I just said, "Look, is there anybody sick in this class?" you did have the odd people that say, if I stab myself, would you heal me? And I went, no, unfortunately that's just called stupidity. Okay? So don't go throwing yourself off buildings and then phoning me up going, can you come and fix my legs? But I just said, is anybody sick? And you know, some people just go, like this. And this one lad just said, I'm not sick, but I'm colourblind. And he said, I really struggle with these sort of colour ranges. And they go, that's not illness. And I said, well, it is if you're colourblind, you know what I mean? You know, dress. And I said, would you mind coming to the front? And he went, yeah, okay. Now these are 13-year-olds, you know, the same age as my Evie. And he stands up, and he comes to the front, and I said, you three, do you want to come down and pray for him? To the front. Now, how many times in church do we struggle to get people to pray for somebody? It's me. These guys, 5 minutes ago, just given their lives to Jesus, and then they're coming down saying, yeah, I'll pray for him. And I come down and say, well, what are we going to do? And I said, you just need to say, in Jesus' name, be healed. Just remember, the miraculous is not about you, it's about him that dwells within you. So the first thing they do, they get their hands and go on his head like that. I'm like, ooh, if he's not colourblind, he's going to have brain damage by the time they finish. So anyway, I said, look, gentle, you know, gentle. And then one after another just said, in Jesus' name, be healed. So you get the significance of what's happening. I mean, I'm party to seeing such beautiful things. Nothing to do with me, all to do with him. And yet, we turn up at places and we can see this prejudice broken down. There's signs and shoots breaking out all over the place, and we are privy to this, we are part of this. But again, as I say to most people, this can't be just about me, us, it's a bigger thing. It's our opportunity to go out and tell the good news, the great news, that actually the one that lives in me can live in you. The one that lives in you can live in others. And actually we have everything that raised Jesus from the dead living inside of us. So why wouldn't we expect to see the miraculous? I am really, really fortunate. People say to me, oh, well, you're gifted and it's all this and it's all that. And I said, listen, it's nothing to do with gifting. I'm just nutty enough to give it a go. That's what it comes down to. Half the time I look like a complete and utter spanner. Do you know what I mean? I go and pray for people and they go, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. And I say, listen, 10 seconds, what's 10 seconds going to cost you? And they go, yeah, go on then. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Dad, it's all over to you now because I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. And that's pretty much how I live my life. I haven't got a clue about half of it, but I trust in him, the one that came and saved my life, to say, well, actually, I'm willing to give that a go, Dad, do you know what I mean? Well, why not? If I look a fool, then I look a fool, that's all right. I've done that plenty of times in my life, ask Sarah. But we have an amazing opportunity before us, seriously, and please just keep praying for that school, because I tell you, there's some really, I mean, we talk about a broken world, but I tell you, there are some tragically broken lives at a young age in there.
When you were just talking about the high school,
yeah, I think.
Yeah, when you were just talking about the high school, I was just remembered, I'd forgotten totally, that I used to go in and pray for the school.
Wow.
Me and Jackie Lyons.
Yeah.
And I think you see the old rector used to come occasionally, and we used to go in. It was, I don't know who started it. Do you remember, Andy? Anything about it? Did you used to go?
No. But I do remember it happening.
Very, very difficult. It was like, you know, walking through a tree sort of feeling, and it was always like you'd get there, and somehow I'd got a relationship with the receptionist, and she said, "Oh, you're here for the prayer thing, aren't you?" And I'm thinking, why on earth am I here? But just led to do it really. So I don't know how long we did it for, but that's going back probably 18, 19 years now. And then I was reminded that you were a governor, weren't you?
Yeah.
Caddy was a governor for
Caddy,
years, and just really how, you know, foundations have been laid, and we're now seeing the fruits. But we sometimes forget where we sort of fit into these things, and sometimes we do things not knowing why we do them. I mean, I was the last person to go and, you know, sit and pray. I find that really difficult with a bunch of strangers. So that was one thing. And then talking about the college, I don't know the new principal, but our friends live in Leominster, and their son is a teenage and sort of asking all the questions and everything. And he went off to some Bible week and came back, and he'd had an encounter. The mum said it was as if he'd sort of been woken up, really. And he met somebody from Hereford Baptist Church who's the daughter of the new principal at the college. So, it's all this connectivity I'm into. And then the final thing was this morning when you said that the new name of this new thing is Kitchen, and then it's called The Table. I was just like gobsmacked because I don't know if you remember Bex and Joe that used to run the cafe next door. Well, Sue and I used to go in after toddlers every week, and we probably did for about a year for lunch. So got to know them really well. Rich got to know them because he works next door. And with people, sometimes God just highlights people, and you just think somehow I'm going to have more to do with those people. Don't know why. What have we got in common? And it's been like that with Bex, isn't it? We move up to Farlow, find out she's running a cafe from the shop in Burwalton. So we decide we'll honour her with our presents for breakfast a few times on a Saturday morning to do her a favour. Both really. But built up a relationship, and then she moved a bit closer to us and started working from home instead of at the cafe. And then she moves the child to Bitterley, so I'm now seeing her at Bitterley, and just all this connectivity really. This week she put on Facebook, again I love Facebook for the connectivity. I've been getting marriage advice from somebody in Thailand this year, wish them a happy anniversary, and she comes back and gives me the tips for good married life, fall in love every day, and it's just so funny. We hear from Sark, an old church leader's son is marrying into the Windsor family, and just
Duke of Kent's daughter.
yeah, Kingston's, do you remember Kingston's? Yeah, Tom is marrying into that family. And, so I just love all the connectivity really. But anyway, Bex puts on Facebook that she's relaunching her business really, and she's eventually come up with a name. Guess what? Kitchen Table. And I was just, for some reason again, I said, well, I'm trying to do more market stores and getting into different places, but I can't do a lot at Christmas time because I'm expecting again. And before I knew it, I said, well, I'll have the baby, or I'll man the store for you, or whatever, and that's just gone out of going in there every week to have lunch. So yeah, I just prompted really to, think about who is in your garden.
Yeah.
You may think there's not many people in your garden, but there are hundreds. Yesterday we had a family, Brookie was 5 and 24 children, and mums all came along. Brookie's dad came along, and all those people in that room and all the needs. And somebody was talking to me about her child's behaviour. It's bizarre, and she's desperate. She doesn't know what to do. And do I just ignore that, or do I go back to her after praying about it and say what I think, what avenue she should take? And just God moves in such bizarre and little ways quite often, but we've just got to be listening, haven't we? We've got to be observant and actually act. We may think we've got nothing to give, but we have.